Our ECG sessions are generally like this early morning. I would appreciate if those who are at the back could come in the front, because then it is more fun. We can interact better, and I cannot see at the back who is sitting. And you will not be able to see the ECGs also well. Fine, so let's begin, because 8 o'clock Shoma is going to talk on a very nice topic, that is CRT for all, NYJ class 1 to class 4. Isn't it, Shoma?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And till now we were talking about CRT in NYJ 3 and 4, but the recent trials have shown benefit in even NYJ class 1 and 2. So let's begin, right? So this is a 40-year-old gentleman who has presented with exertional chest discomfort and pre-syncope. Now, as you see, this is a treadmill. Tracing pre-test standing. Your ECG is the one in recovery in your booklet. So why don't you look at these before? We have a series of ECGs for each patient. So can anybody quickly comment? All these ECGs are very simple, nothing complicated. These are very practical problems. So anybody can comment on this, what it looks like? I want the young people to comment. Who are the young people? Any postgraduate guys? Or who are early in their after MD? I cannot see anybody from here. Dr. Sunil Bhai is the youngest I see here. Dr. Sunil Chaya is here. Yeah, you are the youngest one, so you'll have to talk about it. We are all young till 80 years of age. And when I reach 80, I will say young is till 90. Yes. APCs are there, that's right. Now, you'll have to correlate everything with the symptoms. Patient has chest discomfort. He is made to go on a treadmill. He's got exertional angina. That's why he's being made to go on the treadmill. But he has pre-syncope also, which not routinely our patients complain of. So, does the ECG explain his pre-syncope? Does it look like sinus rhythm here? No. It looks like junctional escape rhythm, isn't it? So, patient has some underlying sinus bradycardia, and then this is a premature atrial beat, and another junctional escape. Anything unusual that you see here? P waves.
What's the morphology of the P wave?
What is the morphology? Actually, this is lead V1, sorry. Yeah, if it were the inferior leads, I would have told you 100% that they are retrogradely conducted. But with this, it's a little difficult to say, but going by the clinical problem, probably retrograde conduction. So this is junctional escape beat plus retrogradely conducted P wave. And the same phenomenon is occurring here. So your clinical diagnosis here is likely to be, patient is likely to be having probably 6 sinus, okay? And how do you expect these patients to behave on treadmill? What do you expect would happen if they are made to walk on a treadmill? Syncope, but what about on the ECG? Why does the syncope occur? Because the heart rate is not accelerating well. In some cases, the sinus node may accelerate, may take up, but the chronotropic competence is not there. So routinely the heart rate would go up to 120, 140, it doesn't go up. Or patients may get a phenomenon like this. What is happening here? Can you tell me? Now this is stage 2 of exercise, 5 minutes into exercise. Heart rate is 112 beats per minute if you are not able to see it well. And patient is having angina. Not complaining of pre-syncope or anything, but patient is having angina. Does the treadmill explain the angina? Yes, the ST depression seem to be there. But anything unusual about this which may correlate to your diagnosis of 6 sinus? Is it sinus tachycardia? No. Where are the P waves? Yeah, that's right. This is all junctional acceleration. So in 6 sinus patients, if the sinus node is grossly diseased, patient is made to walk on treadmill, the sinus node may not be able to accelerate. In fact, it is that because of the exercise, the adrenaline, the junctional rhythm accelerates fast. and the patient may have junctional acceleration. Now, to the uninitiated, they may say, okay, the patient reached a heart rate of 112 beats per minute on exercise. That is enough. Nothing more is required for this patient. But look what happens in your recovery, and you have the tracings with you. This is the tracing number 2 on tracing in your booklet.
We can
So
see the
this is what
previous.
happens in recovery, and this is the time when the patient complains of pre-syncope.
If we can see the previous also, there is like ST elevation in V1 and
Yeah, absolutely.
AVR.
ST elevation in AVR and in V1. So what does that give? Does that give a clue to something? He gets angina in stage 2 within 5 minutes. We have stopped the treadmill. ST elevation in AVR V1 and ST elevation, ST depression in all the other leads. 2, 3, AVF, V1, not V1, sorry, lead 1, V2, V2, V6. So ischemia is likely to be widespread or localized to a small region? Widespread. So it's likely to point towards what kind of disease? Triple vessel disease probably. Shomu, your comment on this ECG and
if you
on the
see
treadmill as a whole. Yeah.
in recovery, if we see, it's a regular rhythm in the initial beats, but see the P wave morphology, it's initial up and down, and then there is a pause. The sinus beat doesn't come up. And when the sinus doesn't come up, there is an escape atrial beat. Along with that, a complex comes, but then later on there is a even longer pause. So possibly there is an element of sick sinus added on to the ischemia part. It doesn't happen generally with ischemia only that the sinus node dysfunction comes up here and there. And then again it recovers.
So this patient had triple vessel disease on coronary angio, underwent bypass surgery, and later on day 5 after surgery, we put in a permanent pacemaker implant and the patient was fine. But basically what we are saying is there is ischemia, but ischemia is not localizing. It is not necessarily that, okay, you get ST depression in V5, V4, 5, 6, that means it's circumflex territory. ST elevation is, you can localize. ST depression is not localizing. And it is not that the patient had RCA ischemia, that's why there was sinus node disease. It is irrespective of that. Vishal Bhai is here. Welcome Vishal Bhai. Early morning on Saturday. Okay, let's go to the next case quickly. 42-year-old gentleman. He had multiple episodes of pre-syncope. He had undergone an ECG, echo, treadmill, everything was normal. And a head-up tilt test was done. And this is the tracing that we have recorded. Are you all aware of head-up tilt test? I've been talking about this for the last so many years. Can I have a show of hands? How many of you are aware of head-up tilt test, tilt table test? That's great, that's great. At least 70% of the people, I'm very glad. So this is a very useful tool to get to a diagnosis of syncope in young people with structurally normal heart. And these are serial tracings, these are not simultaneous tracing. So baseline, we always do carotid sinus massage while the patient is in the supine position and then in tilted up position. This is patient is being tilted up here, and this is going on for 6 minutes here, 6 minutes, and then the patient starts complaining of symptoms. There are a few clues here. This tracing is there in your ECG. Patient starts saying he's getting dizziness, he's getting nausea, and he's having the same symptoms as he used to get earlier. So anybody could interpret this, what is happening? It's a serial tracing, single lead. Yes, there is bradycardia, and patient is having symptoms here. This is at end of 21 minutes. Heart rate is 48, blood pressure has fallen. So at this point of time, patient complains of severe symptoms, and we bring the table back down, and in recovery the normal rhythm resumes. So could you tell me what is the mechanism of this, and does this patient require a permanent pacemaker? Neurocardiogenic syncope, yes. And what is the mechanism? I can't even understand, I cannot make out who is saying it. You are, okay. Can we have the microphone there? It's a little dark out there, so I cannot see. And Dr. Shomu will guide you through the mechanism of this. Yeah.
When we tilt the table,
Yes.
the vasomotor tone is taken off and the blood goes into the lower limb vessels, veins basically. So the heart rate increases to compensate. And when the heart rate increases, there is no diastolic filling of the heart. So basically no cardiac output, and then that's when the patient develops syncope.
Okay, yeah, the mechanism of the physiology is correct, but mechanism, Shomu, could you just...
Yeah, it's basically depending on the response of the patient. There are three types of responses known. One is a vasodepressor response, one is a cardio-inhibitory response, and the third is a mixed response. So either three of them can be there. Here, if both blood pressure as well as heart rate falls, it's a mixed response. There might be just a cardio-inhibitory response in which there is no pulse. Blood pressure may remain the same and there may be vasodepressor. But it's ultimately decreased filling of the ventricles in response, and then a vagal versus sympathetic imbalance in which the vagal takes over, inhibiting as well as depressing the blood pressure. So that takes over, and then once the filling starts, this again comes back to normal. So it's just a reflex which is overactive in certain people who get the syncope. In fact, it's very common form of syncope you see.
And it's extremely common in childhood. This is an example. 16-year-old girl, multiple episodes of syncope. This is the next ECG you have. And you must have heard so many children come to you. Even I as a child used to have this problem, but I was laughed at school. Yeah. Nobody gave a scientific explanation for that time. They used to tell me, okay, you are not eating well. Eat well and gain strength. That is it. So children, they go to school, they are standing in the assembly line, it is hot outside, or during mass PT, they are standing and then they get dizzy and fall down. And another child looks at that child, gets dizzy and falls down. A similar kind of episode. This is a 16-year-old girl, almost 5 to 6 episodes of syncope a year. Usually there are precipitating factors, like she was out shopping in the afternoon and she got it, or she had accompanied a relative to when she saw the blood and had a syncope, and another episode in school. So can you interpret this one? Anybody from the audience? Pardon? Sinus arrest. See, whenever we are talking about sinus arrest, it is more a pathological problem. And here, yes, technically it would be sinus arrest. But what is happening later? So this is the beginning of the treadmill when the patient starts having symptoms of the tilt table, when the patient starts having symptoms. Patient gets bradycardia, longer pauses, and this is a long sinus pause. There is one sinus beat and another long sinus pause here. And at this point of time, the table is brought back down, and gradually the rhythm resumes and patient is feeling better. Now, does this pause make you worried for the patient? No escape rhythm. Yes,
The difference between 6 sinus may be that escape comes faster, and this is because of intense vagal stimulation. The escape may also not come. So there may be long pauses.
So how aggressive are you going to be in treating this patient? She's had multiple episodes of syncope. This is the response that you see on the ECG. In fact, I see something else here. If you look closely in your ECG, what is happening here? There is a P wave, but no QRS. So here you are additionally having an AV
Junctional
block,
block.
isn't it? So not only is there a long sinus pause, junctional escape, but also patient has got an AV block. So how worried are you about this patient? What are you going to do? Sorry? Shorter. But is there a delta wave? There is no delta wave. So I think we'll just leave that aside. In young people, it may appear short. In young people, PR interval is normal from 100 to 200 milliseconds.
Maybe we should see in all the leads also.
So long sinus pause and AV block and multiple episodes of syncope. How will you treat this patient? Obviously, the next question is, are you going to advise a permanent pacemaker? Always remember, 16-year-old, your daughter, my daughter will be 16 in another 6 years, and permanent pacemaker is a lifelong commitment. Rhythm is regular, so what? Very nice, we are getting discussion here. So HV interval, what will HV interval tell us?
Do you expect that this would be abnormal? In this, if the clinical episodes are suggestive of vasovagal syncope and you find this on heart, your next reaction would be to say it's vasovagal syncope. So what should be the treatment of vasovagal syncope? So for
lots
this
of
patient,
fluid, regular meals, what my parents used to tell me, and regular exercise, postural exercises. But here the question, what makes you worried apart from the sinus pause is the dropped QRS. So is there any other mechanism for the dropped QRS? Yes, HV interval, if it is more than 100 milliseconds, what I expect to see on the ECG is a broad QRS, bundle branch block. This the patient doesn't have, it's a narrow QRS, and rest of the time it's absolutely normal during the beginning of the tilt table. So PR interval is normal, QRS is normal, everything looks normal. But the dropped QRS here, the AV block, is there any other explanation apart from a diseased conduction system? Shomo already guided you that the sinus pause is due to vagal stimulation.
AV.
Can you get AV block in vagal stimulation, intense vagal stimulation? Yes, you can. And even in normal people, if Holters are done during sleep, we may see Wenckebach phenomenon. We may see prolonged PR. That is not pathologic. It may be a normal phenomenon. Just increased vagal tone can give rise to this. So here it is in fact a clue that the patient had bradycardia, the AV block here, and in some places there is a slightly prolonged PR interval. Where is it? I had seen it earlier. All are clues that there is intense vagal stimulation going on. Here it is. Yeah, slightly prolonged PR interval here. That means there is intense vagal stimulation due to the stress of the tilt up, and all you need to do for this patient is conservative treatment. This patient does not require a permanent pacemaker in the vast majority of cases. 99.9% of cases of neurocardiogenic syncope would not require a pacemaker. Okay, is that clear?
Just a comment regarding beta blockers. If somebody says that beta blockers need to be given, we should be very careful in giving beta blockers. In fact, European Society guidelines mention it as a class 3 indication. It should not be given in patients who have especially asystole. So for this patient, I think it should never be given. Even in a mixed response or a vasodepressor, nowadays beta blockers are not the current indication. In fact, it's more of fluids, postural training and things like that.
Okay, now another case. 70-year-old gentleman, syncope while shaving. And this patient is undergoing continuous monitoring. There are clues as to what is happening. And this happens. And patient says, oh, I am getting the same feeling again. At this point of time, I am getting the same feeling again. Tell me, what am I doing? Carotid sinus massage. And here it is, CSM. So patient is developing brady and there is a sinus pause. And quickly I take my thumb off. And then he continues to have some sinus pauses till he feels better. So for this patient, we generally have a very low index of suspicion. We need to have high index of suspicion for older patients having syncope. Okay, because this is not a rare problem. A lot of patients have this. And if older patients are complaining of syncope, this is one test that we should do, but we always need to make sure there is no atherosclerotic carotid disease. Don't press directly on the carotid, press on the sternocleidomastoid. It does an equally good job. And what would be the treatment for this patient? How would anticoagulants help? But the patient is having syncope, and if he comes tomorrow with the same problem, then what am I going to tell him? Sorry? Shave while sitting on a chair. Isn't it? Don't shave. Don't shave. Okay. Don't shave. Now then the wives will start complaining next.
70-year-old.
Oh, Shomu, don't cast any aspersions. Huh? We don't know. And shortly
Yeah.
will be reaching 70 before you know. So these kind of patients, what would be the treatment? Patient again has had multiple episodes of syncope, and this is a frequent problem.
Can you avoid it? That's the main difference of a vasovagal versus this. Can you avoid this syncope? Except stopping shaving. If he just extends the neck,
If he extends the neck or the
he
classic,
should not move his neck then. So
If-
can you stop that from happening? No.
cervical
Cervical
collar.
collar.
So Shomu, how do you treat these patients?
What is there recommended would be just a pacemaker, and that not only a single chamber pacemaker, it's said to be a double chamber pacemaker with a rate drop response. So that is the ideal treatment that is given for these patients with carotid sinus hypersensitivity. The reasons is simple. You cannot avoid a neck movement and related bradycardia, so you need to give a backup. That's the same reason.
So that is the difference between a vasovagal neurocardiogenic syncope. The treatment is conservative, lots of fluid, postural exercises. But in hypersensitive carotid sinus syndrome, older patients, there is no way these patients 100% pacemaker would be indicated. Okay. Now let's come to a very interesting ECG. 40-year-old gentleman, patient has had syncope 2 episodes in the last 6 months, and both times his wife, who is a nurse, she said his eyes were uprolling, he had almost passed out, and he recovered in about a couple of minutes after the episode. And he was admitted in a hospital. In front of the doctor, he had an episode, and for some reason an ECG was being done at that time. Rahul bhai and Vishal bhai, very interesting ECG. VT. But why do you think only it is recorded in 2 leads? V1, V2. What happened to rest of the leads? V1, no, only in V2 and V3. Manual method, a nurse was recording the ECG, yeah. Artifact, yeah, that is the thing everybody was thinking of. So the nurse disconnected that, and she also crossed this. This is all artifact. But the patient was having convulsion in front of her eyes. So it could not be an artifact. That time it happened. So Gaurav, you are telling me it's an artifact or it's VT? Yeah, why? Oh, so you mean to say that the sister continued to record it, huh? And
Generally, we'll remove the ECGs once you have this and start massaging or give treatment.
you know, I don't think, is it a manual ECG with that where you have to, or is it a automatic ECG? This is automatic, isn't it? Because it is all the same number of, same amount of tracing is there. So it is one of these new machines where you just press it and 12 leads come out. I have cut it and tried to fit it in one page. That is the difference. Cannot be ignored. And more important, when this tracing was being done, the patient was having syncope and convulsion in front of the nurse's eyes.
Does the sinus rhythm ECG give a clue?
Does it
that
give a
something
clue what
there?
is happening?
That
Gaurav,
something is there?
does it give a clue? You have a fantastic opportunity of looking at the sinus rhythm and whatever this phenomenon is. Yeah, but convulsions due. But yes, but what are the convulsions due to? That is the more important thing. No, you tell me if there is a delta wave. I don't know.
What is the PR interval?
See, to me the PR interval looks fairly normal and the upstroke looks fairly narrow. It is not slurred. To me it doesn't look like a delta wave. But can you look at another part of QRS which is not sharp and which is slurred?
After the QRS.
After the QRS, can you see this? Does it give you a clue to anything? Yeah, there is some abnormal ST elevation here and the patient's ECG later after recovery is showing this. So what is your diagnosis? Brugada syndrome, exactly, this is what the patient had. Echo was normal, coronary angio was normal, and this tracing, the sister thought, oh, this is just some ECG artifact. So she put a pen strike through that, cut kar diya. Then she took another ECG after some time. Luckily for the patient, the tachycardia terminated on its own, and this ECG, this is actually the ECG which the nurse recorded after getting a good tracing on that window of the ECG machine. So we have both after that. So the patient had a polymorphic VT, 2 episodes previously. This time fortuitously, just when the ECG was connected, the patient had an episode and the diagnosis was made. Patient got an ICD implant and is okay. So 25-year-old gentleman complaining of palpitations. We'll be doing rest of the ECGs in the interactive ECG session tomorrow afternoon in Bhagwati. Yeah. So 25-year-old gentleman with palpitations. Could you just somebody describe the ECG? I don't want the diagnosis. Just describe to us what it is. Is it, and the way I go is it bradycardia or tachycardia? It's tachycardia. It's narrow QRS or wide QRS. Wide QRS tachycardia, is it regular or irregular? Regular wide QRS tachycardia. So half your diagnosis is made. Now you have to tell me the rest. So somebody, maybe Gaurav or somebody can just talk about it. What is the morphology of this tachycardia? Can you see P waves anywhere? Not really. What about the QRS? What is the morphology of QRS? RBBB like pattern or LBBB like pattern?
LBB.
LBBB like pattern. Is it, what is the axis? Is it normal axis? Left axis. So LBBB like pattern with left axis. Obviously the diagnosis could be either VT or SVT with aberrancy, isn't it? So patient has had such repeated episodes of palpitations over a period of years, has been relatively hemodynamically stable, but this bothers him a lot. So we generally try to get rid of this problem. Shomu, anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, differential diagnosis of LBB left axis deviation tachycardia is what we generally emphasize on. It can be either SVT with aberrancy.
What should you think of when you see this LBBB left axis wide QRS tachycardia? Fascicular VT, it's a good diagnosis, but generally fascicular VTs are right bundle branch with left axis. So it's a discordant axis. It's RBBB with left axis, whereas this is LBBB with left axis. Bundle branch VT could be one, or RVOT tachycardia
inflow.
is LBBB like pattern, but since it's from the outflow, activation is downward, so generally it is an inferior axis. So LBBB with inferior axis, you would think of RVOT tachycardia. This is LBBB with left axis. So either it is a ventricular tachycardia which is coming from somewhere near the RV apex, which is going like this, yes, or it could be some other form of tachycardia which we generally diagnose. See, for VT, I told you this is a 25-year-old man with normal heart. You don't expect a person with normal heart to have this kind of VT. So in any case, we took him for EP study, electrophysiology study, and I am stimulating the atrium at this point. So here you can see there is a small spike in front of the P wave followed by QRS, PQRS, and you can see this is a narrow QRS, normal looking. So his resting ECG is normal. It is only during tachycardia he has this white complex. And then gradually, what is happening? What is happening here? Narrow QRS becomes broad and it becomes, gets the LBBB pattern. And when I stop stimulating, again it's a narrow QRS. Yeah, I am overdriving the atrium. But why should the QRS become broad? Rate related aberrancy, that is one possibility, yes, you are right. And
Or going
another
through
thing
another
is,
pathway.
it is a very accessory pathway, very good. It could be an accessory pathway, but this type of pathway is a very peculiar pathway. And the reason is the pre-excitation is not manifest during sinus rhythm. It only appears during the atrial pacing. This is something we call as Mahem type of pathway. It's an atriofascicular pathway. This is a normal sinus node, normal AV node. The accessory pathway, the Mahem pathway is here. And it is just behaves like our AV node. So it is a duplication of the conduction system. So even that has decremental conduction property. And the tachycardia that you see is a re-entrant tachycardia where the impulse, here this is an orthodromic tachycardia in a usual accessory pathway. Impulse goes down the AV node, comes up the accessory pathway. But in Mahem pathway tachycardia, it's an antidromic tachycardia. Impulse goes down the accessory pathway, that's why the QRS is wide and comes up the AV node. So this is the re-entry. And since the RV apex is getting activated first, you are getting LBBB pattern and the axis is leftward. So when you get a LBBB left axis QRS, white QRS tachycardia, think of this in a normal patient with a normal heart. If the patient on echo had RV which is dilated, yes, I would think of ARVD, arrhythmogenic right ventricular dysplasia. So without much ado, I took him for the ablation. I localized the pathway exactly where the previous tracing was shown, and I applied energy during atrial pacing because the pathway was manifest only during atrial pacing. And at this point of time, the pathway is gone, isn't it? And narrow looking QRS is seen here. So the accessory pathway conduction is gone at this point of time. So Mahem pathway is a very peculiar type of subset. After ablation, it's a normal QRS. We have a lot of other ECGs like this, but for want of time, we'll stop at this point. We'll carry on during the interactive ECG session tomorrow afternoon in Grand Bhagwati. Thank you, Dr. Rahul Bhai, Dr. Vishal, for coming so early in the morning. And for the next session, I'll invite Shomu again. Carry on in your positions, Shomu, for the next lecture, and that is on CRT for all, NYHA class 1 to 4. Did you enjoy this ECG session? Wonderful, wonderful. That is